Good afternoon everybody, or good evening even. Welcome to the studio this evening. And time now to get on with some more carving of this pussycat. See how it goes. Mainly rounding off around the arms, maybe do some work in this around the elbow, I suppose you could say, and then some work on the face. It's going to be fun. In both senses of the word. I will have fun doing it, but it also will be a challenge. So I'll get on with it, I guess. I'm just looking at it and thinking, what should I do next? Actually, I'm going to do a little bit of work with this tail. I'm going to round the tail. So at the moment it's just flat on the edge. So I'm just going to make that look somewhat like a round tail. The cat's tails do tend to be somewhat round. Interestingly, they're not square. Quite why they should be, no idea, but it just seemed like an amusing thing that everything's always round. Thank you, let go. It's mainly going to be rounded from the bottom. Well, I suppose it's actually going to be symmetric really, but I haven't got a lot of space just around here to round it. In fact, it probably should be a little bit smaller. So we shall make it so, to misquote a particular program. In fact, we'll use the other knife for this. The other knife being a longer blade and a heavier duty blade, I can cut like that, which is a little bit harder with a detailed blade. And then we can round a little from there. May even make a bit more space for it by bringing in the rear leg a little. Also, I spent a little bit of time studying one of the cats, which was sat sort of in this kind of pose at their shoulders and elbows. So I do need to narrow the shoulders there. Thank you, let go. Obviously there's a little bit of rough wood on that side there, keeps catching the glove. Right, so let's make it a little bit more curved in. Around there. Which will allow me to work a little bit more shape into the tail in this along this particular position here. Otherwise it would be a little bit well, I won't say challenging particularly, but I'd just be rounding a very much of a corner off rather than what looks like a tail. So I'm sort of cheating a little bit, but it looks okay. Excellent. Evening and good evening. Welcome in both cases. This camera's moving. There we go. Let me move the hat. There we go. Sorry, I just thought the camera had its automatic light adjustment on there. I don't think it has it? Let me just check. Yeah. Auto gain. Let's turn the auto gain off. Can't do anything about this one, but that one's turned off now. Okay. And save. So how are you doing? I was about to say this weekend evening, but it isn't. It's still Friday. I've been busy all day, so I'm totally confused. I've been off all week, so I'm kind of totally confused as to what day it is anyway. Okay, well, sometimes the tail will get fatter at the end. The tip sometimes is fluffed out. I don't know if you've ever seen a cat when it's really fluffed its tail out. They go about 3 times their normal thickness. They just make all the hairs stand on end, and I usually call it a bottle bush when they do that. Because of the way it looks, but obviously they're doing it to intimidate whatever it is that they're doing it to, but it kind of looks funny to me. Salmon isn't something I'm particularly fond of. It's okay, but I especially don't like it with bones. I hate fish bones. I really hate fish bones. If I buy or Mrs. Argonaut buys filleted fish from which the fish bones have been removed, and we cook it, and I can take a random choice, I can take a considered choice, whatever choice I like, of pieces of fish. Mrs. Argonaut will have a boneless meal. I guarantee I'll get a bone, at least one, and unfortunately it makes me kind of sick when I get that, so I don't enjoy it, so to speak. But and you found a game. You're playing a game in closed beta. Okay, so that probably means you can't tell us what even what game it is. Let's hope it's an interesting one. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? With a fluffed out tail. It stays like that for ages as well. You can smooth it down, it just pops straight back out. Mind you, one of our cats once fell in a bath full of water, and of course he immediately hopped out. He wasn't overly fond of getting wet, shall we say, but isn't that amazing how small they are when their fur is all smoothed down, like obviously when it got wet his fur completely flattened down, and it wasn't half amazing how small they actually look. and then when you compare that to the bottle brush when they fluff out, and it's amazing the difference. I am trying to get rid of a lot of, I would say, quite loose wood here, but there's a lot of sort of partially cut through wood which is just hanging around, looking really untidy, so I'm just trying to get rid of it. I'm following the maxim that you always cut wood off, you never scrape it off. Well, unless you're using a scraper, but I don't sort of twist the blade or scrape it with the sharp blades. It's just proving a little bit fiddly to find out what bit of where it's held on with. There we go. Yeah. Oh, we can get guaranteed boneless, shall we say? I mean, you go to the supermarket and it's will say things like guaranteed boneless, and then in little writing it says may contain bones. Don't quite follow where the guarantee comes in there, but yeah, I absolutely hate them. Even on you know, you get little tiny fish like anchovies and things like that. I can't eat at all. I don't mind fish with, well, I have eaten fish where the bones are in, as long as I can see them and take them out, I'm okay with that. It's just when I get them in my mouth, and it's no thank you. I do have to be a little bit careful that I do not expel them explosively, shall we say. Right. Why don't I make life easier on myself, and let's make his tail a little bit shorter. There's no particular reason why it has to be this long. Don't actually know how long it is. I don't know, Exilian, if you've ever played with the tip of a tail, cat's tail, if they let you do it. It's amazing how that little bone is sort of on the end is, and it's like a finger. Golden Duke, thank you for following. It's just the same as if, you know, we would have a finger, it is, you know, the end bone, but on that it's sort of just odd. This little sort of almost sharp bone right at the tip of the tail. It's a bit kind of a bit weird when you feel that. So I'm just making this tail a little bit shorter, just because it'll then give me a little bit of space just around here to carve. No particular reason why it has to be this long. I've not measured it or anything like that, so make it a little bit shorter and I'll save myself a lot of messing around. So let's now carve the tail here. Actually the tail, of course, the tail tip is quite small, so I actually want to carve that down even further. Now in theory it's sort of a long cone, I guess, is the tail, but I'm not too fussed about getting it really accurately tapered. As long as it sort of looks vaguely round, then I shall be quite happy with it. Oh, oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, because the skin moves quite a bit, doesn't it? Around the cat, yeah, it is kind of a little bit. It's a bit, well, it is literally like they're wearing a coat, isn't it? I kind of know what you mean. I think we used to have one coat that cat that almost used to like, shall we say, like a massage, where you actually moved the skin around, just behind his shoulder blades. You do that, and he just sort of go, oh, and sort of googly-eyed, and just lay there for hours while you did that. It's moments like that when I really wish I could just get out a pad, a pencil pad, and just capture that expression that they have on the face. Yeah, indeed. Well, you shouldn't actually lift an adult cat that way. Kittens, yes, but not adult cats, because they're too heavy. You can stretch or even tear the skin with an adult cat, so you shouldn't really lift it 100% by the fur in its neck. But it is actually an interesting technique, because they remember, well, I guess, I don't know if it's an instinct that's built in or it's just memory, but they if you do that, make to lift an adult cat up like that by the fur just on the back of the neck, quite often they'll just go all relaxed, just like they did as a kitten, so the mother could carry them. And so kittens do. If you want a kitten to just stop, you literally just pick it up by the back of its neck and it'll just hang. Adult cats tend not to, but they will go quite quiet when you do it. So they're a really good technique of just going, yeah, settle down now. stop messing around. I haven't tried that for a long time, though. I must see if quite how these cats react, because I can't remember the ones we've got now. Yeah, I've never tried it for cutting claws. That's an interesting one, because that is always, unless the cat's really used to you doing it, that's always a challenge to cut claws. And I'm always wary anyway. I actually use a pair of sight cutters, because they really come together as a nice sharp, not scissors but cutters. So one side of them is really flat and sharp, and they cut better than the claw stuff, which has a tendency to twist slightly and open out. But I'm always wary when I cut the claws, just how far back to cut them. because I don't, I am aware that if you cut them too far back, they'll actually, you can actually catch a nerve that's in the claw, and they bleed for ages apparently. So I'm kind of always nervous about doing it. So those of you who have joined the stream to watch me carve, welcome to the cat handling techniques. Slightly appropriate given that's what I'm working on, sleeping cat, but the subjects do tend to wander somewhat on this stream. Okay, so we've got a top surface sort of rounded off. I'll probably have another play with it in a little while. Let's also round off the bottom of the tail. Actually, that's tip. Yeah, I'm going to cheat because that should come to almost a point, which means I should, in theory, cut down. I'm not going to cut down. That would be silly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bend his tail in. So he's curling it in. That way I don't have to cut a small gap between the tail and the body to represent the correct thickness. Oh, Moobot, I didn't know you were going to get that precise. I thought it might just do a few hours and minutes, but that's really hard. Is UK Dig? It's really hard. You've kind of really got to think hard about what your friend would be feeling at the moment. I know it's really difficult, and nobody can really tell you what to do. Just you've just got to think about what's best for your friend. But sorry about that, I really am. It's not a nice decision to have to make either way. Uh-huh. Well, the vet would only have mentioned it if he thought it was necessary or advisable, shall we say, or potentially a good idea. So I'm afraid it comes down to a sort of a personal decision, I guess. It's not really something that someone like me should really advise you on. Okay, that tail tip there is still not right, but we will look at that again probably in a little while. Okay, no problem, Maxillian. ASUK Dig, thank you very much for that. That is kind of you to say, sir. I've got the challenge actually of doing the face in a little while. I've got a rough outline of the face. I know the face is too wide or too big for the actual body that I've shaped here, but I can't really do much about that now. It's kind of set in. I was going to say set in stone. It's set in wood, but. I'll try and do a little bit of work on it. Well, if you're in the UK and didn't know it, tomorrow night is the start of the new season of Doctor Who, if it's a series that interests you. It's a series that interests me. I'll be watching it, which actually incidentally means that the stream will be a little late tomorrow. The stream won't start until about 8:30, which is when the programme ends. So just to let you know, there'll be that slightly delay and why. Is UK Dig? Yes. Oh dear. Sorry. I'm probably feeling a little bit tight, so my humour goes a little bit weird at sometimes. Yeah, we have in the house at the moment 3 cats. of which most, if not all of them, actually have appeared on stream now. Junior, Felix and Cleo, which is short for Cleocatra. All of which are rescue cats. Well, technically speaking, I suppose one of them is a rescue cat. The other two rescued themselves. They moved in of their own accord. In fact, Cleo moved in and promptly had kittens. So we suddenly had more cats than we started with. Alright, let's bring these shoulders in a bit because they are too wide. Also, I discovered from looking at a cat last night, the shoulder blades are actually really quite close together on the back when they're sort of laid or in this sort of position. Now this blade, although it's a razor sharp blade, is actually feeling a little bit dull. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a strop. Aldel H, hello, welcome back. Nice to see you again. Free bloke, good evening. Free bloke, 3D bloke. Sorry. Evening, good evening. You've got Filu, he's a 15-year-old black, wow. And Rasputin, that's a nice name for a cat. A British blue British shot. Yeah, I'll get the words out right. Yeah, nice cats. Oh, 1 year old. Yeah. I bet Philu is a little bit sort of exasperated from time to time with Rasputin if it's only a 1 year old cat. You've been called West. Yeah, I'm sure you have 3D block. It's just the connotations of the name when you do that. Right. Well, today has been an interesting one. Those of you who follow me on Twitter will have may well have noticed that I don't particularly always necessarily, shall we say, notice when an autocorrect happens when I'm sending a tweet. I sent 2 today and autocorrect got me both times, which was really annoying because I didn't notice until quite some time afterwards. Yeah, I felt like breaking the phone. No, I didn't. That's not quite true, but I was sort of, no, not again. A bit like the bowl of petunias, not again. Actually, while I'm doing it, I might as well do this one as well. ISUK Dig. Yeah, I guess you probably mean you couldn't be without a cat in the house. I kind of know what you mean. I'm kind of not that bothered either way. I know my wife is. She absolutely adores cats. And I quite like them. Well, I do like them. Don't mind them around or anything like that. If I was living by myself, I probably wouldn't have one, but they can be fun things to have around and interesting and challenging and all those words. I couldn't. Yeah. Yes. Moobot's got it right tonight, but the first tweet that went out, it split the Twitch launch coupon code into two, which of course won't work. And then the second one out, it changed Etsy into test. Right. And of course I noticed it about half an hour later, so but I was kind of annoyed. And it was, I give up. I thought I'll give up. I'm not going to try and send another one that sort of apart from the fact it gets too spammy, but it was. I'm not going to try again. I shudder to think what autocorrect would have made of my third attempt. Position the knife properly, that's it. Position the knife properly, then people who haven't seen this stream before will be getting somewhat either nervous or excited about the way things were going, or if you've seen the stream before, it'll be gosh, I'm not going to cut myself the way I was holding the knife. Turkey, thank you for following. I'm guessing you either like it very much or you're always going around chasing after them. That would split off. That is not something I want. Well, it wasn't a particular problem, but it's not normally something you want to happen. Is wood to split off like that. If you split it as it did there, split along the grain, you basically have no control over just how much wood comes off. Now in this particular case it wasn't a problem, but if I was carving something like an ear and something split off, then I'd probably lose the whole ear. A Van Gogh cat, but so at this point, because I don't know cat anatomy, well, I don't know cat anatomy at all, really. I'm not actually quite sure what the shape is around there. So in order to get the shoulder blades a little bit more prominent, I need a channel down the middle here. I need the centre part between the shoulder blades here to be lower, so they stand up slightly. So I'm using the gouge because it's, to be honest, it's easier than trying to get the chisel in a space where I basically have no. If I start trying to carve in here, I'm hitting the head, so it's really an awkward position to get into. The gouge just makes it easier. That's what the gouge is designed to do. And I'm holding it slightly oddly, you might think, because it actually gives me better control in this than holding it by the handle. In fact, I don't really need the handle on it at all, but leaving it on there just gives me the option of using it if I want to. Now, one of the problems or challenges when you start carving with a gouge, especially if it's the only tool you're going to use, is it leaves little ridges unless you're really careful about positioning. Wolves and bucks, where did I get the blades from? And any advice for somebody just getting into woodworking? These blades were actually bought in the UK. Both the chisels actually and the knives. They're actually I think it's Canadian company's Flex Cut, so it's a distributor in the UK. So you can get them from quite a few wood carving shops on the internet. They're not particularly difficult to find, aren't good chisels. In the UK, where did I get these from? I'm not sure they sell online actually, but one company I've seen them at I think is G&S Timber, who sell online, and there's a fair few others, but to be honest I bought these 3 years ago, so and I haven't bought any since, so the marketplace is very likely to have changed. Somebody just getting into woodworking, if you talk about carving type woodworking, I suppose it potentially applies to others as well, and that is the main tips are going to be buy good quality tools and look after them. You can get very, very cheap carving chisels, for example. You can get a pack of chisels. I'm just going to dig a pack out. Stay. Talking to inanimate objects, it works. There's two lots of chisels in here. The bigger ones with the big handles, not the little white ones, because I've not actually tried those yet. I must try them out. You can get chisels like this in a lot of craft shops, and my wife actually got me these as a present, but I know they are. I know the cost of these are somewhat cheap. In the UK, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 chisels, and I know they were about £10 for the set. That blade alone is £10. Probably gives you an idea of the difference. That's a good chisel blade. Unfortunately, these are blunt. They look sharp, and if you sort of put your finger against them, you might feel sharp, but they are blunt. I have spent several hours trying to sharpen these, and I've got a set of stones which I got a little while ago specifically to do it, because I'd like to try and get these sharp enough to actually carve with, just because they were given to me as a present and I'd love to be able to use them because of that. But no name, so yeah, don't skimp on the tools. Good tools sort of pay back in time and safety and a lot of other things. I just took those back away. Now you saw me tapping on the end of that tool. I wouldn't dare do it on that. So I don't know if you're talking about, you know, hand chisels or knives. Either way, you know, look for a good make. Price isn't always an indicator, but it's, you know, if it's not shall we say reasonably expensive, there's probably a good reason why not, and then you might want to ask that sort of question. In terms of carving though, so you know, they're pretty relatively, shall we say, expensive. They're, you know, they're not cheap, they're not silly expensive. These are these are hand chisels, so you come with this is a hand only. You don't hit these with a mallet. You get a different handle actually. So these particular flex cut ones are a good value from that point of view, because I can get a different handle, which I can then drive with a mallet if I want to do so. Still won't do really heavy duty work, but you know some of the harder woods, like working on ash for example, or if I worked on mahogany, being able to use a mallet or even a power tool would be advantageous, and these are nice because I can just change the handle for that reason. And also you can get multiple handles if you want. So kind of I'd probably suggest starting off with, if you were starting and needed to get a minimum of tools, a gouge, a U-shaped gouge, that sort of size. Let me zoom in on this a little bit just so you can see. I don't actually know what the size of this one is, and I'll need to just tweak the focus. There we go. So you can see it's not a fantastically large gouge, but it's a decent sized gouge. It's great for hollowing out work, you know, just general roughing out work, which is what you tend to use gouges for. You can get away without a flat chisel, but a flat chisel is a good one, is a good chisel to have to start with as well. Again, this is probably about, what, a 1/4 inch wide. So the U looks like about 3/16, I guess. So a flat chisel, a gouge, you could probably get away with 90% of your work with those two. But a V-shape gouge comes in useful as well. So you sort of do quite a lot with those three, and then it's really just different sizes for different jobs. Obviously if you're shifting a lot of wood with a gouge, bigger gouges work better than the smaller ones. You shift a lot more wood. If you're doing very fine detail, then things like a very small V tool. Sorry, trying to camera's backwards to me. So these two are V tools. You know, you get finer lines basically with that. And look after your tools. These are in a, let me just put them away rather than holding sharp objects. These are in a leather pouch. Okay, the leather, because if you fold it up, and these are sort of positioned so they don't come into contact with each other, if you fold it up, then the leather, if the tool itself sort of digs into the leather, it won't blunt the tool. If it was into plastic, it might tend to do that, or if it's rattling against other tools, it definitely, you'd end up with blunt tools. So a good tool case is worth having, or putting them back into the boxes in which they came. That will actually, you know, protect your tools and keep them a lot sharp. So talking of sharp, you do tend to want, camera keeps moving, tend to want to I'll say sharpen them, but it's more with these sorts of tools, it's not sharpening, it's more a honing or a stropping. This is a profile. Things like the V tools are really hard to strop the inside, the inside of the gouge. The outside's easy enough, you can do that on a flat piece of leather, but the inside is really hard, and you do need to be able to do the inside as well, because of the nature of the sharpening process. You need to deburr it. So this has profiles on it which happen to fit most of their chisels, because it's from the same company. So it's just a case of turning the chisel over, fitting it on the profile, and dragging it back to deburr it. It's the same with the V gouge. So that is worth investing in, because you do tend to sharpen these things about every half hour. Knives though, don't ever use a penknife or any knife which doesn't lock. Any knife where you can sort of hold it and get the blade and just snap it shut, don't touch it. If you jab or you lock the blade and move your hand a little bit, it can snap and seriously cut yourself. So old carving jacks, as they tend to get called, which are folding knives, lock in the open position, and you have to perform a special action like push a button or move a lever or something in order to be able to close them. So that's the first tip with those. But then essentially it's the same thing. I mean, I've got two. I don't really know what I'm doing with knife carving, but I got two. A rough knife and a detail knife. There are tens of different knives. Again, they come for different purposes, for different things. Spoon knives look different to these knives. You can get round cut knives where the blade is curved. This is straight-ish. You can get them round cut, which work better for certain things. I'm not experienced enough to say much more than get sharp knives. Get knives which are comfortable to hold, because you do hold them for quite a long time. I like the shape of these because I can drive them safely, and by safely I mean things like if you see me doing this, for example, a lot of people get nervous. But the shape of the handle, what happens is if I'm doing this, it comes into contact with the wood and my thumb. I can't reach. I can squeeze as much as I like, I can't get into contact with that blade. I mean, I can if I bend my fingers, if you know what I mean, but you know, when I'm just carving like this, and I'm not carving on purpose, but I can't make contact. So a good knife design that you're comfortable with does help. But one thing I have found with doing small things, that blade is too long for a lot of what I'm doing on here. This one is also, well, it's just about okay. I could do with the one that's about 2/3 the length for working on small areas, so that I can get in quite close, because as I want to use the point, I don't know if you can see, I actually make contact, and I don't want to make contact because that's when you cut yourself. Yeah. Oh, Bix, good evening. Yeah, and these do. they fit me nicely. I mean, other people might have obviously different hands. Let me zoom this back out again. And actually, that's also a good investment. This is a Kevlar glove. So if you're working with the piece in your hand, wearing a glove on the hand that's holding the piece is a good idea. This is like a cotton Kevlar mix. You can get work gloves which are like they're cotton internally, but they're like plastic coated or rubber coated with Kevlar mixed in with it. But I find them really inflexible and quite hard to hold things. But these gloves are really nice, and not that I cut myself, but you know, you can find occasionally if you're just holding something, you don't quite notice the tip like that, and by the time you do notice, it could be too late. So these gloves stop a slicing action, by the way. They don't stop a stab. So but even with a gouge which can slip, with this not being pointed, it will tend to stop the chisel penetrating as well, which is a good thing, obviously. Yeah, Obix is referring to those two marks there. Junior, who is ultimately the model of that, was sat just there. His tail was over here where all my sawdust is, and I just moved his tail to one side, and he decided he didn't like his tail touched, and I wasn't fast enough and that was the result. Now, why would I want to do that, Raucous Luke? I'd break them. They take long enough to grow as it is, and that would make them all rough and not very nice at all. And you're being rather rude. Well, I'm not too bad, Fluffy Twiggler. I hope you are doing well as well. Yeah, it's easy enough. I mean, when I'm relief carving, I generally don't have my hands anywhere near the tools. It's just so I don't wear the glove when I'm relief carving, but when I'm doing this, I'm finding I get close enough sometimes to be thankful I thought of it, and I have come in contact with the glove a few times with either the knives or the gouge, so I think it's definitely worth it. Besides, cutting yourself is painful, but I suppose like this, I'm trying to hold the piece, and if the gouge does slip, and although I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it, specifically because I am hand carving this, I'm not trying to take great big chunks out, but occasionally you just apply a bit of pressure and it does come into contact, so definitely worth having. Not unless you've got them underneath it or perhaps on top of it. Yeah, that would be really hard to call me that for all sorts of reasons. Oh, you're visiting the in-laws. Oh, okay. Well, I hope you're enjoying yourself out there, Fluffy. Didn't know your one of your computers was broken. Oops, it is it. See, I'm not really concentrating a little bit. I'm just taking the bit out of there. One thing, yeah. When you're using sharp tools, concentrate on what you're doing. And it's when you're not concentrating that accidents can happen. Oh, and keep your tools sharp, wolves and bucks. Essentially, effectively, the sharper they are, the safer they are. Or shall we say, there's less potential for accidents. The accidents happen because you're using force to do what a sharp blade should do in its place, or you're trying to do too much, so you're using more force than you should do. So a sharp blade, you're more guiding it, shall we say, unless you're trying to overcut. So if you start finding you have to put a lot of force into it, then you're trying too much, and when you put force into it, it becomes more uncontrolled, and an uncontrolled blade is dangerous, whether it's sharp or blunt. Even a blunt chisel will cut yourself with if you apply force, even those blunt ones I had earlier. So if it's taking too much force, you're doing something wrong. Another tip: keep your elbows on your. I'm sat on a chair arm. Keep your elbows on the chair arm. That way, you can't use your arm muscles. You might have got used to it now with the knife. Same with the chisels to some extent. Is don't cut with your arm muscles. So don't use your arm muscles like this to cut. Hold a knife. Use your thumb to drive against, so you curl your fingers or you push with your thumb. That way the blade only has a limited movement, and generally speaking you've got this safety stop. Or you drive it with the other thumb or fingers, so you either push the blade with your left thumb or you pull the work with your hand like this, fingers, and again the range of movement is limited, so that you can't actually sort of really drag it, and you can't put a lot of force into it. Basically, you reduce the risk of serious injury. That's getting a bit personal, Pointless Dave, but I think you meant only source of income as opposed to own source of income, because it is my income. But I do make things. They do go up for sale, and I've just made a public shop on Etsy for some of the jewellery, which actually I haven't sold. What you see there are samples. If you go have a look at the Etsy shop, they're samples of which another one would be made, not that one. Those, what I do with the jewellery is I experiment, I have fun. I make a bracelet, I make a chain, and then I give that to my wife. So if anybody would like one like that, I'll make another one. And the fun is in the making and the designing and what have you. So I do like to make more than one of that. It's not my only job. I work in telecommunications, and I deal with a lot of numbers, and that's as much as I'm going to say about it. Am I still carving the cat? Yeah, I'm not doing a lot of it tonight, am I? So I shall get back to doing a bit more of it. See, this is the point where the Kevlar glove helps. I'm not likely to make contact with my finger because of the angles I'm using. But let's just say I was a little bit careless and I moved the blade in a bit, then I could. It's a really awkward position. I don't want to slice his ear off. What I'm doing here is I'm driving the blade actually with this middle finger. All in my right hand here is just stabilising the blade and keeping it at the angle I want it to go. How many ideas about my next project? No, no, I don't. Actually, I've just done pyrography for Fluffy Twiglet. You'll have to wait. The next craft after this. I don't know if you meant carving or you meant the next thing. The next craft after this would be scraper board, and not sure on the scraper board. The same actually with the punchcraft that will follow it. I was kind of thinking about doing maybe a big cat, so you know, a tiger or something like a tiger or a leopard face for the scraper board. And punchcraft, I was kind of thinking maybe about a snow leopard, something like that perhaps. Oh, I could just do another train. Oh, welcome back 3D bloke. What you want is one of those BT phones that have the Call Guardian built in. We bought one of those. We went from having anything up to 10 sales calls a day, quite a few of them silent, to none. Absolutely amazing device. Well, I suppose I'm being a bit disingenuous, because we've still got the calls. The phone, it's just that the phone doesn't ring, so we don't know we've had the calls. The real nice bit though is it still answers the calls, so these people that ring up still have to pay for the call. They just don't get to talk to anybody. It's a completely subconscious theme, if that is the case, Orbix. But I do obviously, given that we've got 3 around, my wife loves them. I could potentially have a good reason for doing the cats and the big cats. I don't know. I did an elephant in pyrography last, and a giraffe, so yeah, it just seemed to actually almost carrying on with that theme. So the African type animals, but I could go something more domestic and do a pig, for example. Boomaro, welcome. And Anam Cyber, also welcome. For people, TPS, yeah, we were TPS registered. Doesn't make any difference because they're international calls. They don't care because it doesn't apply. The regulations doesn't apply, and you can't do anything about it. It's totally irritating. So when we used to get up to 10 and just say international. So, but of course, it's people that know you, and then, well, it does the same to people that we know. But At least we get to know they're actually ringing, and we can then decide whether to answer it or not. It just happens free. It happens to a lot of people. It just needs somehow you end up on a list, and then that list gets sold, and it gets sold, and it gets sold, and what a lot of companies do. Whereas if they were calling from the UK, they'd have to take account of the TPS, which is the telephone preference service for those people that don't know. It's a list you can register on, and people who wish to cold call you, that is call you when they do not have a what they call a relationship with you in the first place, so you don't already buy something from them or something, then what they do, what a lot of them do, is they use an overseas call centre, and they can completely ignore the TPS list. Unfortunately, what the TPS ought to do is not base it on the organisation that's calling you, but the organisation that commissioned it. And if they're in the UK, then they should be forced. But you will see sometimes in the newspapers, people who are getting 50 or 60 calls a day, and it's actually absolutely ridiculous. It's annoying enough. Well, it was to us with just sort of 10 or so. But you give up, you answer the phone, and it's either silent or they suddenly start launching into a sales pitch. And unfortunately, all that happens is they just hang up free, so it doesn't really. If you can convince them to hold it for long enough, fine, but do I have any pyrography work? I do. Yeah, okay. I can show you a little of the pyrography. I do have some pieces. Let me just get rid of the wood chips off this glove so I don't spread them all over the floor. Come on, I only found that the other day. Oh, that is irritating. Oh well, I've got to find it again now. Yeah, I can show. Let's have a look. I've lost the pyrography piece. The cats have a tendency occasionally to lie behind me, which is where the pyrography is, and they pushed one of my small pieces off somewhere. I found it. I put it back on top of the truck that's laid behind me, and it's gone walkies again. I like cats. Sometimes I don't like where they lay. But talking of cats, here's the first pyrography piece I did on stream. That is that is the cause of the scratches on the back of my hand. Yeah, 26 degrees here in the studio, and I've got a fan running. So that's Junior, and we have Felix. Don't have one of Cleo. That might be one that I will do in the future. So we've got one of each. Then I've got a door hanger with a fox on it. That's awake, a fox that's awake. And conversely, we have a fox that's fast asleep. We've had sunshine all day, 3D. It's been a little bit overcast and sort of threatened as though it might rain, but it's been sort of warm and what have you. So it's been quite good because I've been clearing out a garage. So of course the door hanger with yeah, do not disturb if you like, and okay. What I've then got is all of these have been done on stream. So we've got one of the big. This is one of the largest pieces I've done. I do have some A3 board that I might try. Salute to Sunset. So we've got an elephant there. Inspired by 3D block saying you should do an elephant. So I did. Whether it's Indian or African, I don't know, but it's an African savannah. With the giraffe in the background, and it's sunset. And I kind of, romantically if you like to think the elephant is sort of waving bye-bye to the sunset. So salute to sunset. Got the last one. Trains. Fluffy Twiglet, trains. So that's the last one that we did on stream. That's a monorail from Walt Disney World about 15 years ago, at least. I know they've replaced them since then, so I don't know if they still look like that. But that's a monorail. And the first time I attempted trees at the bottom. So since I attempted trees, I had a bit of time left at the end of that stream. So I did 3, and I can only find 2, but 3 little trees. I also did a poplar, but that's the one that's gone missing twice now. These aren't particularly meant to be any type of tree at all. It's just a shape, but I was quite pleased with them. They look quite good. There we go. Oh, I wish I could find the third one now. It's gone walkies again. And Cyber, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, it's just shading really free. It kind of came free. It's one of those Bob Ross things. Obviously I was trying to shade the shade side and the sun side slightly differently and things, but they turned out really nice and almost by accident. I'd like to say skill, but it is almost by accident. And I can actually show you another 2. I really would like to know what happened to the poplar. I'll show you another couple, which were practice pieces, but just to give you some examples of a different pyrography. So this is practice. I call it practice because it's done on hardboard, which is a brown wood, as you can see, rather than the lighter wood. It's both more challenging to get the shades in on a darker wood, but also this wood's cheaper. So if I make a mistake, I'm less bothered by it. So an Avro Lancaster and a train which I've only half finished. So that was and that actually was a pattern which I then used for one of the Punchcraft streams. I took the same drawing and turned it into a miniature rug. I am. They're just short trousers. So there you go. That's just a little bit of the pyrography. I have done other pyrography. Sorry, I'm just cover up the magnifying glass because I don't want to set anything on fire. I've done other pyrography, but not on stream, and that stuff is actually sort of downstairs. I've done some portraits and what have you. Portraits, for example, in pyrography, but that's downstairs where I'm not able to get at it. Yeah. See, strictly speaking, the shoulder blades should be about here. I'm just debating whether or not to actually make any sort of attempt to carve something like that. Turkey, would you consider this a hobby? Yes, it is, definitely. All 5 of them, and that's just the 5 that I do on stream. Definitely a hobby. They're not they're not commercial. The jewellery would be about the closest to commercial, and that's because I've already spent 15-20 hours, about 15 hours doing this, so it would be a really expensive for this to be a commercial thing. Yeah, I do other things as a hobby as well though. So I've got some rug making stuff down here, 2 lots, latch hook and punch style rug making. Airbush stuff is up there. There's some pearl beads that I've not tried yet over there. That's on top of making the remote control models and other modelling stuff that gets done, like the both the trucks and the helicopters. And I tend to forget there's cross stitches around the place. I do have some oil painting stuff, not oil, acrylic painting stuff around, even the heavy sticks. Not heard anything about the Orbix, so I wouldn't like to say. It was an amazing aircraft, which was sort of still, relatively speaking, extremely advanced when they shut it down. But commercially, for the French at least, it wasn't making any money. As far as I know, all the jigs and things have been destroyed, so I don't think it physically can be brought back without spending a lot of money, unless you're talking about some new design. Okay. Oh, as a yeah. Just as a yeah, like a museum piece. Well, I was kind of surprised they didn't leave one like that. But once they sort of decommissioned them all, and then it sort of didn't seem like it was ever going to happen. But yeah, I mean, it would be a it is a tourist attraction, even in its non-flying state, wherever it happens to be. I wonder which one they will pick. Looks a bit better. Only about 15, I think, Corbix. Whoever built. I think something like the French had 7 and the UK had 8 or something like that. Don't think there was many. Well, they must be buying it off someone then 3D, because of course they've all gone out to museums and things already. So they're all owned by somebody else, unless there was something in a contract somewhere. Where are they expecting to put it in London? I mean, there's one at Manchester. Yeah, at Manchester Airport, actually. So I wouldn't have thought they'd have a place at Heathrow or Gatwick to house something like that. Actually, yeah, because there's I think 1 to 3 were flying test models anyway. On the commercial flights, yeah, I think. And Paris, Charles de Gaulle, and New York. But British Airways used to hire them out quite frequently for both for things like day flights, supersonic flights. But there used to be a couple of companies. Goodwood Travel was one of them, and there was another one that I can't remember, which did things like I don't know. If you like, almost holidays out to places like Egypt. So Concorde out, Egypt to, I don't know, Cairo or something like that, and then back to the UK on as a round trip Concorde. Or they do things like Christmas. They go out to Lapland. You could go one way or the other on Concorde, or even both ways if you wanted to on Concorde. It would be awesome to see one flying, yes. They I can actually claim to be one of the very few people outside of Concorde pilots who have actually flown the simulator. I think there's less than about 2 dozen people that weren't pilots or aircrew who have actually flown the simulator, and I'm one of them. A new type of motor has been built, yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, the idea 3D of compressed space is it's the space that travels faster than light, not the object within it. So that the object is travelling less than the speed of light within the compressed space. It's the space bubble type of idea. I'm not sure. Actually, Pocket's an expert. It's kind of the other way around. Matter is the result of light-ish, sort of. Well, okay, everything's the result of energy. And that energy would first have been we'll say known as of light before it actually coalesced into matter. Yeah, I would take. It probably would take things like that with a pinch of salt at the moment. Anybody claiming to actually have created a motor that would do that in real life. It's like the teleportation thing. You know, they claim that they think they've probably teleported a photon or something like that, or a neutron. It's kind of like, when I see something a little bigger, then I might believe it. Quite often what happens with a lot of these discoveries, you know, faster than light travel, etc., is they will experimentally potentially prove that the theory is possible, and then you'll get a newspaper that picks it up that says, you know, faster than light travel proven, or faster than light travel invented in the lab, and all the poor lab has done is sort of, you know, prove that the theory is possible, or that it might possibly happen, and then all of a sudden everybody thinks, you know, and the conspiracy theory jumps in, you know, the government is suppressing this because they don't want you to have faster than light travel. Yeah, bullshit. I don't know if that's physically true, LD. I mean, it's the known laws of physics suggest it would require infinite energy, which suggests it's not possible. But that's the theory also allows for things like the speed of light to be different, and therefore different things to happen. I think, if I remember correctly, some of the formulas that include a time element also don't disallow a negative time element, which implies that the theory that's developed means that time could run backwards. So it's kind of like the theory might be wrong. After all, it's a theory, and therefore, or the theory might be right. Then you've got negative time, or it might be that there's something we don't understand. Oh, it isn't constant 3D. It's constant with the current physical constants. If you change the nature of space, the speed of light changes. And in actual fact, technically it isn't constant, because if you shove light down a fibre optic, for example, the speed is different. It's not 186,000 miles per second. It's close, but it's not the same as it is in free air or free space. So the speed of light does actually change. Depends on what you're measuring it in. Oh, are we into metaphysics now? I enjoy kind of reading about things like that, but I'm not particularly one for arguing the point either way. Now let's see if I can shape the back a little bit better around here. So just, if you like, cut the, when the shoulder blades come up, you've got like a dip in the middle between the two shoulder blades. So hollowed that out a little bit. Now what I want to do is meld, shape that cutout into the rest of the body, so it's not, it doesn't look like a cutout, it looks like it's just part of the body. Essentially it means smoothing out this area around here. Oh dear, when you're into metaphysics like that, buckets and experts, you don't have to get into all those sorts of concepts to drive your mind potty. You can just start doing things like, that's a knife. It's a funny word, is a knife. Why is it called a knife? Why don't we call that a chair? Yeah. And why isn't this called a car. Why should it be a pencil? What is it that makes that pencil? What's the pencilness about that makes it a pencil? Or the knifeness of this that makes it a knife and not a chair? Why am I not carving with a chair? Or even why am I carving at all? Why am I not sitting with a chair, that piece of wood? But why call that wood? Now you get your brain going. Right. When I oh dear, I'm just about to say what I'm doing here is just trying to get something that makes the shoulder blades look a bit or feel a bit right. I'm just thinking we've been discussing metaphysics. You know, what is Thursday and you know, what is time, and talking about getting shoulder blades on a pussycat on a piece of wood, right? Ah dear. There's I don't know if you quite call it a theory or whatever, but there's an interesting observation that science fiction drives a lot of science. And especially popular science fiction. So you've got things like, you know, when you got things like Arthur C. Clarke talking about satellites about 5 years before they were ever thought about, especially big communication satellites. I've forgotten the exact figures or whatever it was. You've got things like, of course, Star Trek. Transporters and I don't know, flip top communicators. You remember the flip phones? I actually did hear a story, and I don't know if it's true, but the original designer of the flip phone did it because he wanted a Star Trek communicator. And things like the tricorder is sort of coming around now. You know, you've got the theories and possible transporter technology and stuff like that. So it's quite amazing how much science comes out of ideas that are put forward in science fiction, and then, you know, real scientists get interested. Yeah, the things you end up talking about when carving a cat. Excuse me a second. Right, I'm back. Yeah. Of course, they're also getting closer to replicators. Is that what I'm working on that side? at the moment anyway, Elder H. You never know. I mean, things like, I don't know, beanstalks have been or are being considered for Mars. Which is a totally, originally a totally science fiction idea. You're back into metaphysics again there, Pockets and Experts. It certainly is an interesting thing to to contemplate. Is that just what is the what is precognition? Are you actually seeing something that hasn't happened just through a quirk of time, or are you actually seeing something that has happened? In which case, is the thing that you're seeing that has happened, is that the same has happened as is about to happen? And your tenses get all mixed up as well. Because there's lots of other theories with related to precognition as well, like parallel universe theory. So what you're actually the precog is about is not your own universe, but a parallel universe. Which of course then means it's not precognition, it's just remote sight. But then that would also imply that
Oh, Jesus.
Parallel cat's claws. Parallel worlds run it at different times. Oh, that sounds like a career move, Pockets and Experts then. Cleo has sharp claws. He was indeed the cream cake fairy 3D bloke. Yes, indeed. I could say that's why you only ever see fairies, not hear them. Well, countering gravity is yeah, is easy pockets and experts, from short-term countering as LDH there's LDLH says there, from jumping to just generally powered flight. If what you're talking about, however, is anti-gravity, that's a different matter. But you're then into the same things with gravity as you are potentially with light. Are there gravitons? Is there particles and wave type things of gravity as well as light? So is gravity just another form of electromagnetic radiation? Somehow just associated with mass. Rather sillily, when I first carved this, I carved it with a curve. Cats don't have curved bones, or they shouldn't have, so I've now got to straighten it out. It is, if that's what you prefer, Ald. I don't mind. Try and use the names people have chosen. After all, you chose it, and you chose it for a reason. So, right. So a little bit of a too tight a curve there to use the knife. So I'll use the chisel. Being very careful here, it's a little bit close. Normally you wouldn't carve with a chisel off the piece, because that's a recipe for actually breaking off wood, but it's also incredibly difficult to carve on from the edge, just because you always try to take too big a starting cut. It's really hard to get a fine starting cut. Okay. Okay, okay, 3D block, fair enough. I may get a chance to watch you a little bit later, but maybe not much. No. Not that much DIY, no way. For those, by the way, that are in stream that aren't aware of 3D Block there, who is now just vanished, but 3D Block is an airbrush artist, very good one, and he's also works with paintbrushes as well. Amazing guy. Yeah, paintbrushes and airbrushing. got to slum it occasionally. He streams the airbrushing usually. At the moment, however, he's practicing with some oil paints, so he's not streaming his painting at the moment. As he mentioned there, he's streaming spin tyres tonight. So if you're at all interested in that game, or even just hearing 3D, he can be quite amusing to listen to, and I certainly enjoy watching his stream. Then hop over there and check out the stream. And obviously, if you like what you see, then obviously give the guy a follow. He should be live in a few minutes, which is quite convenient really, because if you're looking for somewhere to go watch next, then that's a good choice to start with, because it's now 10 o'clock at night and it's about time I finished for the night. So effectively, Free's a little bit late because I'd normally hand over to him. But what I'm going to do is a couple of things. I'm going to get my hand out of the glove, and I'm going to point at the top of the screen and just point out the launch of the jewellery on my Etsy shop. If you're at all interested, check it out. There is for the next few hours a 20% off coupon available, which Moobot has been busy posting every so often in chat. But if I've got the right command, or if I put the right command in the right place, I'll get him to give you it one last time. So well, that'd be worth you check it out if you're looking for Christmas presents for any friends or for yourself. Then that might be an idea to take a look at. And it helps the stream out as well. The other thing to let you know about is that tomorrow night's stream will be starting late. I'll be half an hour late. I normally start at 8 o'clock. It'll be 8:30 tomorrow. The new series of Doctor Who starts tomorrow for those of you in the UK at 7:40, ends at 8:30, so hence the slight delay to the stream start. So what I'm going to do now though is remind anybody that's watching and isn't following that if you'd like to do so, I certainly would like you to push the follow button. If you just like notification and not want to follow, I'm not quite sure why that would be the case, you can follow me on Twitter. There is a tweet goes out without autocorrection affecting it when I go live, before I go live each night. So at Zaragonart. If you come back later, the details of that are below the stream window, and they'll be on the end plate again in a moment as well. On the other hand, if you just want to catch the next stream, as I mentioned, tomorrow it's 8:30 UK time. That's 19:30 GMT, half an hour later than normal, and that's about an hour and a half ago for anybody that's not in those two time zones and you want to calculate it for yourself. So thank you all. Hope you've had a good time. I have. Hope I'll see you in the studio on a future stream. Bye bye for now.